This story is very meaningful. Everyone should hear it. Listen to Brian tell the story. My name is Emily, and I'm 28 years old, a marketing specialist who thought she'd finally found her footing after marrying Dexter, my rock of a husband, last year. We met in college. He was an engineering major. I was chasing a business degree. And from the moment we clicked at a campus mixer, we've been inseparable. I'm not the type to back down from a challenge, but I've always had this shadow hanging over me. My younger sister, Arya. She's 20 boss, a whirlwind of ambition and desperation for attention, and she spent her life trying to outshine me. We've been competitive since we were kids, but it's never been fair. Our parents always saw her as the golden child, while I was left scraping by, working part-time jobs to pay for school. Dexter and I built our life step by step, and after our wedding, I thought I'd finally get a moment to breathe. But then Arya pulled her biggest stunt yet, and it's why I'm standing in my office parking lot right now, staring at her tear-streaked face and my mother's pleading eyes as they tried to shove a temporary custody agreement into my hands, begging me to take her baby. It's a crisp March afternoon in 2025, the kind where the wind bites just enough to make you pull your jacket tighter. I'm on my lunch break, heading to my car for a quick sandwich run, when I spot them, Arya and Mom, barreling toward me like they've rehearsed this ambush. Arya looks like a wreck, her dark hair tangled, bags under her eyes so deep they could hold spare change. She's clutching a crumpled piece of paper, and Mom's right behind her face a mix of guilt and determination. My stomach drops. I know this isn't a casual visit. "Emily, please," Arya sobs, her voice cracking as she stumbles closer. "I can't do this anymore. The baby, it's too much. You have to take her, just for a little while." I freeze, my keys dangling in my hand, the metal cold against my palm. Mom steps forward, her tone softer but insistent. "She's overwhelmed, Em. She needs a break. You and Dexter are stable. You can handle this. It's only 6 months." I feel a surge of anger bubbling up, hot and sharp, like I've swallowed a lit match. "6 months?" I snap, my voice louder than I mean it to be. "You want me to raise your kid because you couldn't handle the spotlight you stole?" Arya flinches, but she doesn't back down. "You don't get it," she cries, tears streaming now. "I thought I could do it, but I can't. If you loved me, you'd help me." I take a step back, my sneakers crunching on the gravel, trying to process the audacity of it all. Coworkers are starting to trickle out of the building, glancing over with curious eyes, and I can feel the heat creeping up my neck. This isn't just about a baby. It's about Arya's lifelong mission to one-up me, and now she's dragging me into her mess. "No," I say firmly, my hands trembling as I shove my keys into my pocket. "This is your responsibility, not mine." Mom tries a different tack, her voice dropping to a manipulative whisper. "You've always wanted kids, Emily. Maybe this is God's way of giving you that chance." I laugh, a bitter, hollow sound that echoes in the empty lot. "God's will? Don't you dare pull that on me." Arya's sobs turn into a wail and she lunges forward, grabbing my arm. "You're ruining my life," she screams, loud enough that a guy from accounting, Steve, I think, stops dead in his tracks to stare. I yank my arm free, my patience snapping like a brittle twig. "Get out of here," I say, my voice low and dangerous. "Both of you, I'm calling security." They hesitate, Arya's cries softening into hiccups, Mom's face hardening with disappointment. But they finally turn and shuffle away. I stand there, chest heaving, watching them disappear around the corner, feeling like I've just dodged a bullet, or maybe stepped into a war zone. Let me rewind a bit because this didn't start in the parking lot. It started years ago with Arya always nipping at my heels. When I was 7 and joined ballet, 3-year-old Arya threw tantrums until Mom and Dad signed her up too, even though she hated it. When I made the basketball team in 8th grade, she suddenly needed lessons, spending hours practicing just to outscore me. At 15, I started piano, and she insisted on extra lessons to dazzle everyone at the yearly recital. High school and college were the same. She'd study until her grades were a plus to my A, and when I got into state university with a partial scholarship, she clawed her way into an Ivy League school with a full ride, our parents footing the bill while I bussed tables to cover my tuition. They'd beam at her, calling her their perfect girl, while my wins, graduating with honors, Landing a solid job, barely got a nod. It stung, but I dealt with it. Then came Dexter. We met at a college event, bonded over cheap coffee and late-night study sessions, and built something real. When we got engaged last year, my grandparents were over the moon, gifting me Grandma Ruth's antique cradle with a wink and a hope it'd be filled soon. Arya couldn't stand it. She hated that I was the center of attention for once. And that's when she set her sights on outdoing me again. 2 months after our wedding, we're at a family Sunday dinner. The kind where mom's roast is overcooked, but everyone pretends it's fine. Arya stands up, clinking her glass with a smug little smile, and announces she's pregnant. Kenneth, her boyfriend, Dexter's younger brother of all people, nearly chokes on his mashed potatoes, his fork clattering to the plate. "Wait, what?" he stammers, his wide eyes darting around the table. Mom and Dad erupt in cheers, already planning nurseries and college funds, while I sit there, fork frozen midair, feeling the air sucked out of the room. Dexter squeezes my hand under the table, his thumb brushing my knuckles. A silent, "We'll get through this." Later, mutual friends spill the truth. Arya stopped taking birth control without telling Kenneth, all to have the first grandchild and steal my thunder. I'm furious but not surprised. It's classic Arya, always chasing the spotlight, never thinking about the fallout. Fast forward to the baby's arrival and the cracks show fast. Arya thought motherhood was all cute Instagram posts and adoring likes, but the reality, diapers, night feeds, endless crying, hits her like a truck. Kenneth's no better, staying late at his new IT job to avoid the chaos at home. They're drowning, and instead of stepping up, Arya starts calling Mom at 3 a.m., whining about how hard it is. Then comes the dinner ambush. Last week, Mom and Dad invite me and Dexter over, claiming it's just a casual meal. I should have known something was up when Kenneth's parents show up too. We're barely through the salad when Mom launches in. "Arya's struggling," she says, her voice syrupy with concern. "She needs a break, and you two are so settled. Why don't you take the baby? It'd be good for everyone." I nearly spit out my water. Dexter's jaw tightens, his calm facade cracking as he sets his glass down hard. "You're kidding, right?" he says, his tone sharp enough to cut glass. Dad jumps in, all earnest. "You wouldn't even have to try for your own kid. It's perfect timing." I'm speechless, my mind reeling as anger and disbelief tangle in my chest. They're serious. They want us to raise Arya's baby because she can't cope with the mess she made. That brings me back to the parking lot, where Arya and Mom think they can guilt me into caving. But it doesn't end there. That night, they escalate. I'm home with Dexter, unwinding with a glass of wine, when the doorbell rings. It's Arya, Mom, and Kenneth's mom, Mrs. Carter, standing on our porch like a tribunal. Arya's holding a suitcase, her eyes red and puffy, and Mrs. Carter's got this smug look, like she's about to close a deal. "We've got a plan," Mom says, stepping inside uninvited. "You take the baby for 6 months, and if it doesn't work, we'll figure something else out." Arya nods, desperate. "Please, Em, I need this. Kenneth and I already booked tickets to Europe. We just need time." I blink, stunned, as Mrs. Carter chimes in, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "We'll sweeten it for you, extra inheritance for Dexter, maybe a new car, a Tesla even." Dexter laughs, a dark, incredulous sound, and stands up, towering over them. "You're unbelievable," he says. "If you leave that kid here, we're calling CPS. This isn't our burden." I nod, finding my voice. "You don't get to dump your mistakes on us, Arya. You wanted the glory. Now deal with it." Arya explodes, shrieking that I'm selfish, that I'm punishing her for daring to need help. Mrs. Carter starts crying about Kenneth's ruined life, and Mom throws in that Arya's got postpartum depression. Like that's my fault. I'm shaking, my hands clenched into fists when I finally snap. "If you don't leave, I'm calling the POM," I say, pulling out my phone. "Bye, Mom." They freeze, shocked that I'd go that far, but I mean it. Arya makes one last play, her voice trembling. "You've always wanted to be a mom, Em. This could be your only shot." I stare at her, my heart pounding with a mix of rage and pity. "Not like this," I say. "Never like this." They slink off, defeated, and Dexter pulls me into a hug as the door slams shut. I bury my face in his chest, tears stinging my eyes, feeling both victorious and utterly drained. The next day, I need clarity, so I head to Grandpa Tom's house. He's always been the steady one, the voice of reason in our messy family. It's a Wednesday afternoon, and Grandma Ruth is at her bridge club, leaving him alone with his newspaper and a cup of tea. I bring his favorite lemon cake from the bakery down the street, and when he sees me, his weathered face lights up, until he notices the storm in my eyes. "What's wrong, kiddo?" he asks, setting the paper aside. I sit in the old leather chair across from him, the same one I'd curl up in as a kid, and spill everything. Arya's pregnancy trap, her meltdown, the family's insane push to make me fix it. His expression shifts from concern to fury, his bushy brows knitting together as he listens. "They told me you offered to take the baby and backed out," he says, voice rough. "I didn't know the half of it." I shake my head, my throat tight. "They're lying, Grandpa. They're trying to force us." He mutters something about how he didn't raise his kids to act like this, then calls Grandma home early, a rare move that tells me he's serious. When she arrives, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun, I repeat the story. Her eyes widen, then narrow, and by the end, she's gripping Grandpa's hands so tight her knuckles are white. "This stops now," she says, her voice firm. Grandpa nods, then drops a bombshell. "We've got a house," he says. "An hour out of town, peaceful spot. It's yours." I gape at him, my mind spinning. "What? No, that's too much." But he cuts me off, his tone gentle but unyielding. "It was always going to be yours in the will. Take it now. Get away from this nonsense." Grandma smiles, a rare softness in her eyes. "Sometimes distance is the only way, Emily. Start your life fresh." I'm overwhelmed, gratitude and disbelief crashing over me like a wave, and I nod, tears slipping down my cheeks as they hug me tight. 3 months later, Dexter and I are settled in that house. A cozy two-story with a big backyard and quiet neighbors. We've changed our numbers, installed cameras, turned it into a sanctuary. I've got a library now, shelves lined with books I've always wanted to read, and Dexter's set up a home office, his monitors glowing late into the night. We're planting a garden, even adopting a scruffy little mutt we named Scout, who bounds around like he owns the place. Arya and Kenneth never made it to Europe. Our CPS threat scared them straight, and word is they're in parenting classes now, scrambling for daycare. Mom still emails my work account, calling me cruel, but my boss filters it out. Grandpa and Grandma visit often, bringing cookies and stories, and they've told Mom to back off. A line she's still testing, but they hold firm. One night, Dexter and I are on the porch, Scout asleep at our feet, the stars bright above us. He takes my hand, his fingers warm against mine, and says, "We did the right thing, Em." I nod, leaning into him, feeling lighter than I have in years. "Yeah," I say, my voice soft. "And maybe soon, that cradle will get some use, our way, our time." He smiles, and for the first time, I believe the drama's really behind us. We're free, and that's worth everything. Scout's soft snores fill the quiet night as Dexter and I sit there on the porch, the weight of the past months finally lifting off my shoulders. I can still feel the echo of Arya's screams in that parking lot, the sting of Mom's guilt trips, the disbelief in Mrs. Carter's bribe attempt, like a bad dream that won't fade. But here, in this little haven an hour from the case, it's like I've woken up. The air smells of fresh cut grass and pine, and the only sound besides Scout's breathing is the faint rustle of leaves in the breeze. I turn to Dexter, his profile sharp against the moonlight, and I feel this swell of gratitude so big it almost chokes me. "We're really okay, aren't we, Whitney?" I whisper, half afraid saying it out loud will jinx it. He squeezes my hand, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Better than okay," he says. "We're us again." And he's right. It's not just about escaping, it's about reclaiming what's ours, our peace, our future. The next morning, I'm in my library, sunlight streaming through the window, dusting off a stack of books I've been meaning to dig into. There's this one novel, a dog-eared copy of Little Women that I've loved since I was a kid. Jo March always reminded me of myself, stubborn and scrappy, fighting for her place. I'm flipping through it when Lila texts me. She's my coworker, the one who laughed her head off when I told her about Arya's parking lot meltdown. "How's the new digs?" her message reads, followed by a string of house emojis. I grin, typing back, "Like a dream." No ambushes, just quiet. She fires back. Good. You deserve it after that soap opera. Drink soon? I laugh out loud, the sound bouncing off the walls, and it hits me how long it's been since I felt this light. Deal, I reply, already picturing us at some dive bar, her cracking jokes about my family while I sip a beer. Lila's not the only one checking in. Grandpa Tom calls later that day, his gruff voice warm through the phone. Settling in all right, he asks, and I can hear the clink of his teacup in the background. More than all right, I say, curling up on the couch with Scout sprawled across my lap. Thanks to you and Grandma. He chuckles, but there's a seriousness underneath it. We saw what they were doing to you, kiddo. Favoring Arya all those years, it wasn't right. This is your time now. Why, I swallow hard, my chest tightening with emotion. I just wish it didn't have to get so ugly, I admit, my voice small. Family's messy, he says simply, but you don't owe anyone your happiness. His words sink in, solid and true, and I hang up feeling like I've been handed a lifeline I didn't know I needed. Meanwhile, Arya and Kenneth are finally figuring things out, or at least trying to. A mutual friend, Jess, fills me in over coffee one weekend when she swings by. She's got this bubbly energy, always up on the gossip, and she leans across our kitchen table, eyes wide. They're in parenting classes, she says, stirring her latte, and Kenneth's mom found them a daycare spot. No Europe trip, though. Your CPS threat scared the crap out of them. I smirk, stirring my own coffee, a mix of relief and vindication washing over me. Good, I say. Maybe they'll grow up now. Jess tilts her head, studying me. You're not mad anymore? I think about it. The anger that used to burn so hot, it kept me up at night. Not mad, I say finally. Just done. She nods like she gets it, and we move on to lighter stuff, her new job, my garden plans, leaving Arya behind like a closed chapter. But Mom doesn't let go so easy. She's still emailing my work account, sneaky little messages that slip through before my boss can catch them. Last week's was a doozy. You're tearing this family apart, Emily. Arya's depressed because of you. How can you be so cold? I read it at my desk, my jaw clenching so tight I hear it pop, and I have to step outside to breathe. The nerve of her, twisting it like I'm the villain when she's the one who enabled Arya's chaos. I don't reply. I've learned that fighting back just feeds the fire. But it still gnaws at me, that old ache of being unseen, unvalued. Dexter finds me later pacing the backyard, and he doesn't say much, just pulls me into his arms. She's wrong, he murmurs into my chair. You know that. I nod against his chest, the tension easing, and I let it go, piece by piece, like leaves falling off a tree. Things aren't all heavy, though. Our new neighborhood's a gem. There's a community garden down the street, and we've started planting tomatoes and herbs, getting dirt under our nails and laughing when Scout digs up half the seedlings. The folks here are friendly, too. There's Mrs. Hanson, a retired teacher with a sharp wit who brings us homemade jam, and Tyler, a single dad who runs a tech startup and trades dog training tips with us. One Saturday, we're all out there weeding and chatting, and Tyler grins at me over the tomato plants. You guys seem solid, he says, wiping sweat off his brow. Takes guts to ditch the drama like that. I smile, brushing soil off my hands. Took more guts to stay sane through it, I joke. And he laughs, a deep, easy sound that makes me feel like we belong. That night, Dexter and I are in the kitchen cooking dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta and a salad, but it feels like a ritual, a quiet claiming of our space. Scout's chewing a bone in the corner, and the radio's playing some old Springsteen tune. I'm chopping tomatoes when Dexter slides up behind me, his arms looping around my waist. Thinking about that cradle, he asks, his breath warm against my ear. I pause, the knife hovering, my heart doing a little flip. Maybe, I say, turning to face him. Our kid, our rules. He grins, that slow, steady grin that got me through college finals and family fights. Our kid, our rules, he agrees, and we kiss, soft and sure, the promise of it settling deep in my bones. Looking back, this whole mess with Arya taught me something big, something I want to share with you all. It's not just about surviving family drama or dodging guilt trips. It's about knowing what you're worth, drawing a line when you need to, and building a life that's yours, not someone else's script. I spent years chasing approval, bending over backwards to keep the peace, but all it got me was resentment and a front row seat to Arya's spotlight show. Walking away wasn't easy. God, it hurt like hell to see mom and dad pick her side again, to hear Arya call me selfish when I said no. But it was right, because here's the truth. You don't have to fix everyone else's mistakes. You don't have to carry their burdens just because they're family. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself, even if it means letting go of people you love. So what do you think? I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me what you'd have done in my shoes. Would you have taken the baby? Fought harder with Arya? Or maybe you've got your own story about cutting ties to save your sanity. I'm all ears. This whole crazy ride has been a wild one, and sharing it feels like letting the last of it go. If you've stuck with me this far, thank you. It means more than you know. And hey, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and give the bell a tap. I'm planning more real-life stories like this, the kind that hit you in the gut and make you think, and I'd love for you to come along. Share this with a friend who needs a nudge to stand up for themselves. Maybe it'll spark something for them too. Dexter's calling me for dinner, and Scout's barking at something in the yard, so I'll catch you in the next one. Until then, take care, and don't let anyone steal your spotlight.